Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome again to Syriana Analysis. I'm your host, Kevork Almassian. Thank you very much for tuning in to today's live streaming. I appreciate you all, whether you're watching this stream on YouTube or on Rumble. This stream is about two major topics, one of which is the ceasefire agreement in the Gaza Strip, and the second one is the confrontation that happened yesterday during the last press conference of Antony Blinken in the White House. After a week or so, they will leave and we will have a new Secretary of State. So this was his last press conference during which he was confronted by Sam Husseini and Max Blumenthal. But if we're going to start this conversation, because the press conference was interrupted because of the Gaza Strip, right? So let's speak a little bit about the ceasefire agreement. What is my take on the ceasefire agreement? First things first, the first and major and imminent consideration must be human lives. Therefore, a ceasefire agreement that protects the lives of thousands and tens of thousands of Palestinian civilians who were definitely going to be exterminated in the upcoming weeks and months. This is a victory for them. This is a victory that they survived a genocidal war against them, but this is not everything. So I just want to make this, wanted to make this comment because I would like to say my priority as person whose first factor that I look is humanitarian in the Gaza Strip. I'm happy about the ceasefire agreement, and you should be as well. And that's why the Palestinians are celebrating in the Gaza Strip, because they have survived. So this is a victory for human life. I understand that. So if I want to put the humanitarian consideration aside, and if you want to a little bit philosophize and give some analysis of the ceasefire agreement, I would say that during this time, we have heard a lot during the past months that the Americans must vote for Joe Biden because he is the lesser of two evils. Talking heads, especially affiliated to the Democratic Party, like Mehdi Hassan, told us that the lesser of two evils is Joe Biden. And if you vote for Donald Trump, then he will exterminate, or he will be worse on the Gaza Strip. And I was wondering, how can he be even worse? Because the only thing that the Israelis haven't used is an atomic bomb or nuclear bomb against the Palestinians in the Gaza Strip. They have already dropped around 4 atomic bombs over the Gaza Strip, if we calculate the ammunition or the explosions. So how can he be even worse on Palestine? Now, I don't have illusions that Donald Trump has appointed and selected many Zionists in his cabinet. I'm just saying that Joe Biden's cabinet was not has not done any better, or he couldn't do, or he didn't want to do anything better for the Palestinians. So when I see that this current ceasefire agreement, which is agreed by Hamas and probably today by the Security Cabinet of Israel, has been approved and pushed by Donald Trump, I come to the conclusion that the Biden administration, Antony Blinken, Jake Sullivan, and everyone in his administration who insisted to stay in the administration and didn't resign in the past 1 year and 2-3 months, then they are not only complicit with this genocidal war and the heinous crimes committed by the Israeli occupation forces against the Palestinians, but they were also partners. So in the Genocide Convention, it is mentioned that the countries or the politicians or the officials who are complicit with the genocide and don't stop the genocide, if it's ongoing anywhere, then they are complicit. If they sell weapons, for example, to a country which is committing a genocide, you're complicit. But in this case, I truly believe that the Biden administration has surpassed the role of a complicit, and we could say with great confidence that they were partners in this genocidal war against the Palestinians. They haven't only delivered all sorts of weapons and ammunition, they have also vetoed multiple times ceasefire agreements, and they have rejected the same ceasefire agreement that was put on the table many months ago. Also, additionally, the Biden administration has leveraged its aircraft carriers and warships in the region to bully and blackmail other countries and other state and non-state actors, and even conducted airstrikes against Yemen, against Syria, against Iraq, against Lebanon, from these countries, because missiles or rockets or aid or supplies were going to the Palestinians. So any player in the region which participated in this conflict in support of the Palestinians or in order to stop the genocide in the Gaza Strip, they were targeted by the US, they were targeted by the Great Britain. The Yemenis example is there. I'm not saying they have succeeded entirely, but they have played an active role in the genocide. So the Biden administration is not only complicit, but also partner in this. Now, when it comes to Donald Trump, yes, I believe that people have to give him a credit for pushing and pressing Netanyahu to accept the ceasefire agreement. But I'm not also naive enough to believe that the the Trump administration or Trump's motivation is humanitarian. I don't believe that the major factor which motivated Trump to make his phone calls and send his Middle East envoy was humanitarian. I believe that there are bigger geopolitical considerations at play, and Donald Trump wants to create a new environment in the region in order to push a few strategic agreements and steps that are detrimental for the US and Israeli hegemony over the region. So I'm not saying that he stopped it for the good of the Palestinian people. I'm saying that the ceasefire agreement, if it is respected, it is meant for allowing and creating a climate in the region or an environment of compromises. And Syrian case was part of these compromises. He wanted to impose a compromise over Syria, and because Erdogan knew about it, so he rushed and he unleashed his HTS terrorists in Syria in order to already slice the cake and have a better negotiating position when the time comes for a compromise. So in this case, I would like to mention that one of the reasons, I believe, why Donald Trump pressed Netanyahu to accept the ceasefire agreement is the potential and upcoming defense pact between Saudi Arabia and the United States. So Saudi Arabia and the United States have been talking in the past years to strike a not strategic only partnership, but rather a defense pact, which means that if this agreement is signed, then the United States is legally compelled to come in defense of Saudi Arabia if Saudi Arabia comes under attack. And also means that the Saudis will have an advanced access or a big access for the American weaponry, and the Americans will prioritize selling American weapons to the Saudis. Also, the Saudis will have reach and access to some of the AI programs in the United States and develop them or bring them to Saudi Arabia. However, in this agreement, also two more things. If this agreement is signed, then Saudi Arabia will minimize the Chinese investments in the country, plus the United States will help Saudi Arabia or itself will build a nuclear program, civilian nuclear program for Saudi Arabia. So those are the elements of the defense pact. It's a huge and important and strategic agreement for Saudi Arabia and the United States. It doesn't matter if you agree or disagree, this agreement could change the face of the region. So Trump is motivated by that. And in one of the clauses in the defense pact, it is mentioned that the US will sign this treaty with Saudi Arabia when Saudi Arabia normalizes its ties with Israel. So in this case, when you put the map in front of you and you calculate what's happening in the region, you see that the Saudis, they cannot normalize relations with Israel under such circumstances when Israel is committing a genocide, when Israel is on a rampage, a killing rampage, basically. And Saudi Arabia also cannot sign on a peace treaty with Israel when tens of millions and including the Saudis, having these negative sentiments toward Israel. So when you strike a ceasefire agreement in the Gaza and shift the public attention into some other place, I'm talking about the PR machine, I'm talking about the press and the NGOs and all these human rights organizations, etc., then the spotlight will be removed from Israel to some other places. And when the killing stops, also this allows for a political process in Palestine itself. And here I suspect that what the Saudis and the Israelis and the Americans agree on is ending Hamas in Gaza. So how would they do that? They have already destroyed the infrastructure in Gaza and probably some of the battalions or the militants of Hamas. But what they couldn't do is completely eliminate Hamas from Gaza, right? So they think that this is a time for a political process in the country which could achieve the same goal of eliminating Hamas from the Gaza Strip, but in different ways, in different means. And what I'm referring to here is bring back the Palestinian Authority to Gaza. And once you bring the Palestinian Authority to Gaza, everybody knows that the Palestinian Authority is funded and supported and covered by Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Turkey, and the United States. And they have close intelligence cooperation and coordination with the Israeli intelligence. So they are in this the camp of normalization of relations and more pro-Saudi approach, Emirati approach, etc. in the region, something, a group that doesn't believe in armed resistance or struggle against the Israelis. And during this time, what we're going to see is a few major things. I think once the Palestinian Authority comes to Gaza, and they might be, or they could create clash between Hamas and the Palestinian Authority, then every other ally of, let's say, the Palestinian Authority, whether the Emiratis, whether the Saudis, whether the Israelis, whether the Americans, they will support the Palestinian Authority against Hamas. And they will say this is the legitimate authority and Hamas is a terrorist organization, and they will give enough financial aid or political cover, and I don't know, probably military aid to the Palestinian Authority to do the job of the Israelis, which they couldn't achieve in the Gaza Strip, right? And I'm sure that the Palestinian Authority, Mahmoud Abbas and the rest, have no problem in doing that. And they're basically doing it in the West Bank right now. So they're chasing the resistance. They are kidnapping anyone who holds guns against the Israelis. They're sending them to dungeons. They're killing basically people who even intellectually calling for armed resistance against the Israeli occupation forces, one of which was Nizar Banat, for example, in 2021, when the Palestinian Authority killed someone who does basically like podcasts like this. He just speaks on the screen to the screen, and he was pro-resistance or pro-armed struggle against the Israelis, and the Palestinian Authority killed him. So I suspect that this is going to be, this will give the chance to take the spotlight out of Palestine case to start a political process and try to delegitimize Hamas in Gaza, and in an attempt or a bid to eliminate Hamas completely from the Gaza Strip and bring the Palestinian Authority. And after that, the Israeli side will accelerate its settlement policy. And this has been reported today by The Lever, which is, this report is very important, by the way, in the context of the ceasefire that we are speaking here. As ceasefire nears, Jared Kushner's new investments could boost Israeli settlements. Just before the Israeli-Hamas war ceasefire, Donald Trump's son-in-law doubled his stake in an Israeli firm that stands to gain from expanding Israeli settlements. So as you can see, amid the potential wind down of Israel's war in Gaza, Trump's former top Middle East advisor and family member is poised to benefit from expanding settlement efforts in Palestinian territories under Israeli occupation, which are illegal under international law and are driving mounting violence against Palestinians in the West Bank and East Jerusalem. Already in the hours following the ceasefire announcement, Trump announced his administration would lift sanctions brought by the Biden administration against violent Israeli settlers. According to the United Nations, settlers were responsible for more than 1,000 attacks on Palestinians last year, the highest level of Israeli settler violence ever recorded. On Wednesday, hours before the ceasefire deal was formally announced, Israeli regulators approved a deal that gave Kushner nearly 10% ownership in Phoenix Financial, Ltd, a major Israeli finance and insurance firm, making him the company's largest shareholder. So, in this case, I think we have to see, like, as I mentioned in the last live streaming, I said the devil is in the details. I think this is one of the devils in the details that we have to shed light on. So when the attempt here to achieve the same goal through different means, and this time through political process, bringing back the Palestinian Authority, expanding the settlements in the West Bank, it is again ethnic cleansing, but with soft tools, with other tools. Like if you are building major settlement compounds and you're kicking out the Palestinians from West Bank and from East Jerusalem, then you are again doing ethnic cleansing, but without military force, right? So the goal is the same, but the means and the tools are different. And also, I would like to back up my argument by Chris Hedges. Chris Hedges says, Israel, going back decades, has played the same duplicitous game. It signs a deal with the Palestinians that is to be implemented in phases. The first phase gives Israel what it wants, in this case, the release of the hostages, but Israel habitually fails to implement subsequent phases that would lead to a just and equitable peace. Hamas is seeking a permanent ceasefire, but Israel says it retains the right to re-engage militarily. There is no agreement about who will govern Gaza. Israel has made it clear that the continuance of Hamas in power is unacceptable. There is no mention of the status of UNRWA, the UN agency that Israel has outlawed and that provides the bulk of the humanitarian aid to the Palestinians, most of whom have been displaced. There is no agreement on the reconstruction of Gaza, much of which lies in rubble. And of course, there is no route to an independent and sovereign Palestinian state. There are many, many ways this can fall apart, as I expect it eventually will. But let us rejoice that, at least for the moment, the mass slaughter has stopped. 100% true, Chris. This is the only thing that I see is positive, that is the killing of the Palestinians is over. Then we will see that during the first phase, when the Israelis free the hostages, some of which are military, some of which are civilians, some of which are Americans, then what are the next steps? Who is going to govern Gaza? What is going to happen to UNRWA? Who is going to rebuild Gaza? And what about the status of the statehood of the Palestinians? Nothing is mentioned, right? And nothing is still settled about these things because, as I mentioned, Israel sees this as an opportunity for them to create a climate of hatred now against the Palestinian militants, basically in the Gaza Strip, and bring the Arabic countries to fight against them or the Palestinian Authority. And unless there is something tangible written about the Palestinian state, sovereignty, who's going to govern Gaza, who's going to rebuild this enclave, right? I don't think that the Israelis are going to allow, or let's say, I don't think that the Israeli side has the best interests of the Palestinians at heart. And in this case, our friend Dan Cohen, he also says that I suspect the purported ceasefire was engineered to strengthen both Trump and Netanyahu politically. The story of Trump's Middle envoy strong arming Netanyahu makes Trump appear dominant and committed to ending wars, while Netanyahu can claim to his right-wing coalition that he was forced to sign it by Trump. In reality, both are heavily influenced by Miriam Adelson, and both seek to advance Israel's normalization with Saudi Arabia, which was held up by the ongoing genocide in Gaza. I want to show you this clip of him explaining this. Take a look.
I think actually this is actually a very important part of it, of this ceasefire, is it helps advance Israel's normalization or temporary ceasefire. It helps advance Israel's normalization process with Saudi Arabia, because Saudi Arabia it's difficult for them, as long as Israel is committing genocide, to openly normalize, even though this is a long-standing goal of Israel and the United States and Saudi Arabia. But because of public opinion, it's harder to do. So when it's made to appear that there's some kind of plan being rolled out and Israel's being forced to go along with it, then it's a different sheen than just genocidal Netanyahu and his band of of lunatics like Itamar Ben-Gvir, Bezalel Smotrich.
So before I move on in this, I just want to thank every single one of you for tuning in. First of all, if you're watching this, I would really appreciate it if you hit the like button while you're watching, because this content reaches to more people. Secondly, I would like to thank the supporters of Syriana Analysis, and I would like to exclusively mention every place where people are supporting this channel, including the Patreon, including on Buy Me a Coffee. They're supporting through PayPal, and supporting also through the premium membership. Also, thank you for everyone who is just simply watching this channel on YouTube and on Rumble. Without you, this work cannot continue. And I wanted to say this thank you because I'm receiving endless messages, also sometimes on Patreon, sometimes on Buy Me Coffee, commentaries, etc. And I truly apologize if I couldn't answer to you and I couldn't come back. I am truly overwhelmed with a lot of work. And if I start answering everyone and cheat for a chat, I can assure you that the 8 to 9 hours that I work per day to produce this type of content, then I will spend my time just answering to comments and to messages. Therefore, I prioritize bringing you a content, a stream. It's not easy to bring 5 streams per week. Like there are many topics, but you have to read and know what you're speaking, because during 1 hour, you have to make sense and you have to connect the dots and you have to bring quality analysis. Otherwise, nobody wants to come and watch the streams that I'm making on Syriana Analysis. So I'm truly thankful for you. And just for checking, if you want to check if you're subscribed or not, that would be also great. If you subscribe, we are nearing 100,000 subscribers on Syriana Analysis. And let's see if YouTube will send me this, I don't know, silver plate or something, because they sent me an email, said you are coming like nearing 100,000 and we have to evaluate your work and see if you deserve the silver plate. So let's see how is that going to end up. Now, as we at the beginning, I'd explained to you the ceasefire agreement. I tried to explain why Netanyahu was interested and why Trump was interested in this ceasefire agreement, definitely for geopolitical and strategic interests in the region and not for humanitarian reasons in the Gaza Strip. And this has been confirmed by the security advisor of Donald Trump. So the security advisor of Donald Trump, Mike Waltz, lays out a plan Netanyahu has hinted at. Israel views this deal as only one phase to get the Israeli and US hostages out. He says Hamas will be destroyed and Gaza totally demilitarized. Let's take a look first what he has to say about this.
And from your perspective, if this deal goes through and we enter what's characterized as the first phase, does that effectively mean the war is over? Does a ceasefire mean that its work is done in Gaza for the foreseeable future?
Well, I certainly think Hamas would like to believe that, but we've been clear that Gaza has to be fully demilitarized. Hamas has to be destroyed to the point that it cannot reconstitute, and that Israel has every right to fully protect itself. So, all of those pieces, all of those objectives are still very much in place. Look, I mean, October 7th was a terrible day. They put everybody in a terrible position, including the Palestinian people of Gaza, whom they regularly hide behind and are willing to sacrifice and have sacrificed for their own sick ends and objectives. And so we need to get our people out, and then we need to achieve those objectives in this war.
And you've said every member of Hamas should be killed. Pete Hegseth today at the confirmation hearing was asked by Senator Cotton something related to Israel, and he said every last member of Hamas should be killed. So from your standpoint, the incoming administration's policy is still Hamas cannot have a role in governing Gaza.
Hamas can't have a role. ISIS doesn't have a role. Al Qaeda doesn't have a role. No, of course not. And it astounds me that people try to put them in some type of special category. These are hostage-taking, murderous, rapist, torturers that never should ever have any role in governing. Some will try to kind of point to the practicality. I don't think any of that is practical. None of it's acceptable. And we shouldn't subject the Palestinian people to that either. We shouldn't sell them short. They're, look, many of them, as we know, have been brainwashed, but we'll never get to a better future. We'll never get to a truly stable region if we don't carve out this cancer.
So I just wanted to watch this in length before I make a comment about it. So he mentions few things here. First things first is the aim of this ceasefire agreement is that they want to implement the first phase and take out the hostages, the Israeli and the American hostages, and then they would start the phase 2 to try to demilitarize the Gaza Strip, eliminate Hamas, and kill every member of Hamas, which is very troubling to say because saying a militant from Hamas is something and every member of Hamas is something else, because if you say the militants, then at least in front of, let's say, under international law, you would say you're fighting against militants and there is an active security threat, etc. Even if this claim is bogus or not, but at least you're killing a militant. To say every member of Hamas, I think this also indicates that they will come after the political bureau of Hamas, the political bureau which consists of the politicians, speakers, journalists, etc., civil service, civil union, etc. So this would be something beyond imagination if they are going to come after the civilians of people who have a civil status in Hamas, right? Because Hamas was and still is a political party first, and then it has an armed wing of it. Now, my opinion is I don't believe that any of the countries or any other places in the region should be governed by a Muslim Brotherhood group. I've been talking about this for a very long time, and I'm not a fan of Islamist groups. I'm not a fan of the Muslim Brotherhood, and Hamas is a Muslim Brotherhood, mostly affiliated ideologically to Turkey and Qatar, unlike what many people say. Yes, Al-Qassam Brigade receives support from Iran, but ideologically they are affiliated to Qatar and Turkey. Now, the alternative, however, for Hamas is the Palestinian Authority. This is how the region is being nowadays presented, or those are the options presented to the people in the region. Like, on one hand, you are telling them that you have a militant group like Hamas, for example, and on the other hand, you have a militant Islamist Muslim Brotherhood group, and then on the other hand, you have people like Mahmoud Abbas, or who are like in the political direction or are revolving under the umbrella of the UAE and Saudi Arabia, right? It's unfortunately there is nothing in between, and that's why the region is in front of crossroads. And I think Hamas will, politically at least, will come under immense pressure and will accept some of the conditions of the Americans and the Israelis, because who is the backer of Hamas at the end? So militarily, as I mentioned, Iran. And Iran lost a big leverage, let's say, influence in the region after Syria and after what happened in Lebanon. So I don't think at the current moment Iran is willing or capable of sending any type of military support to Hamas. Secondly, the financial support, if it's dependent on Qatar, then Qatar can have the keys for any so-called solution for the question of the Gaza Strip. And that was the reason to begin with why Qatar was tasked by the United States to engage with groups like Taliban, groups like Hamas, and even finance Hamas to begin with. Because once you finance a group, you have a leverage. And once you have a leverage, you start buying the politicians, you start buying the journalists. And this is we have to be honest with ourselves. So many people in the Gaza Strip working with Hamas, they are affiliated with Qatari-funded NGOs or media outlets and, civil society, schools, etc. So that's why we see people like, I will show you something today I saw. Actually, it was yesterday, and it's something little, sometimes it's ridiculous and bothering, but anyways, A Palestinian from the Gaza Strip who I believe lives nowadays in he lives in Jordan. This is what he posted basically. So he says, one good thing from this ceasefire agreement is that Iran is out of the scene, right? And this guy has over 854,000, and he is a very, I would say, he's more affiliated to Qatar and Turkey. And I say Azerbaijan supplies about 40% of Israel's oil through Turkey. Notice how Ikhwanjis, which means the people who are Muslim moderate, blame everyone but Turkey and Qatar. And this is the fact that many people do not mention. Qatar has monopolized the truth, has a big monopoly over the media outlets, on the NGOs, on the academia and universities, faculties, research centers, polling centers, etc., etc. It's a political money, right? So they did similar thing with Hamas by engaging with Hamas in the past 20 years and attracting them on the Qatari side, and there was a big money on the Qatari side. That's why Hamas in 2011, 2012, when the CIA and the MIT and the other Israeli intelligence orchestrated the regime change war against Syria, Hamas chose to be on the side of Turkey and Qatar because they were financially dependent on Qatar, right? Also, ideologically, they are affiliated also to Qatar. So it's a really difficult for me, people come and say, oh, you're supporting Hamas. I never supported Hamas. I support the Palestinian people, and I support their right for dignity, for humanity, for decent life, for statehood, to be treated like human beings. And they have the right for their land. They have the land. They have the right for their towns. They have the right for their cities. Myself agreeing or disagreeing with Hamas is completely irrelevant. I was always, like, if you noticed, I have never ever praised Hamas in my last 1 year, 2 months. Never. I just intellectually I can't agree with groups like Hamas. I always ask myself also, let's suppose Hamas liberated Palestine. What is going to happen? Are they going to build a civil state for the Palestinians? No. That's serious thing, right? I would like to see a civil state in Palestine where everybody is treated equally. So, under such circumstances, Antony Blinken, who has given carte blanche to Israel to commit these heinous crimes against the Palestinians, he held his final press conference, and he was confronted by brave and real journalists. Why I am saying brave and real journalists, I will come to that later in this stream to give my opinion. So Max Blumenthal and our friend Sam Husseini, who are outspoken critics of the US foreign policy and its support for Israel, they lambasted the Secretary of State Antony Blinken over the ongoing onslaught against Gaza. And they interrupted his friend's conference, and they had started asking him about the 15 months of slaughterhouse, let's say. So they called him a criminal, and why aren't you in The Hague? And also Max Blumenthal told him, why are you destroying our religion by trying to associate us with Israel, etc., etc. I would like to start this segment with the video posted by Max himself, and this video is recorded by himself and is watched by 2.6 million people. This is crazy number of people, which shows you the appetite of the people to against such policies. Let's take a look first of what Max did.
300 reporters in Gaza were on the receiving end of your bombs. Why did you keep the bombs flowing when we had a deal in May? We all knew we had a deal. Everyone in this room knows we had a deal, Tony, and you kept the bombs flowing. Why did you sacrifice the rules-based order on the mantle of your commitment to Zionism? Why did you allow my friends to be massacred? Why did you allow my friends' homes in Gaza to be destroyed when we had a deal in May? You helped destroy our religion, Judaism, by associating it with fascism. You waved the white flag before
We'll have the time to take
Netanyahu.
questions at the end.
You waved the white flag before Israeli fascism.
We'll have the time to take questions
Your
at the end.
father-in-law was an Israel lobbyist. Your grandfather was an Israel lobbyist. Are you compromised by Israel? Why did you allow the Holocaust of our time to happen? How does it feel to have your legacy be genocide? How does it feel to have your legacy be genocide? You too, Matt. You smirked through the whole thing.
Look here. Look at this smirk. Look at this smirk. Look at this face. And he told him you're smirking. Look.
Feel to have your legacy be genocide? How does it feel to have your legacy be genocide? You too, Matt. You smirked through the whole thing every day. You smirked through a genocide.
Thank you.
Your father was an AIPAC lobbyist. Your grandfather was an AIPAC lobbyist. Are you compromised, Tony? He called him a Tony. That's really degrading his position. That was good. That was good. Well, kudos to Max Blumenthal. It takes lots of guts and bravery to say. And that's why, like when I said brave journalist, it takes lots of bravery. I mean, look, even if you're looking for, let's suppose some people may come and say, oh, but he was just looking for a scene, to create a scene and for clickbait. Even for that, you need some bravery to do something like this, right? Probably next year they will not accredit him as a journalist in the White House, right? And the same goes for Sam Husseini. And Sam Husseini is more senior. He's probably 60, 65 years old. Just saying probably. And he also interrupted and confronted Antony Blinken. If I'm not mistaken, Sam Husseini is also of Palestinian descent, right? So anyways, while I'm searching for it, I will show you the video of Sam. So this video is divided into two parts. And as you can see, they're showing you the face of Antony Blinken while Sam Husseini is speaking about it. Take a look.
2 or 3 people. You pontificate about a free press. You pontificate about a free press. You are hurting me. You are hurting me. You are hurting me. I am asking questions after being told by Matt Miller that he will not answer my questions until I'm asking questions. Wasn't the point of the May 31st statement to block the ICJ orders? You blocked the ICJ orders.
Please, sir, respect the process.
Oh, respect the process. Respect the process. Well, everybody from Amnesty International, to the ICJ, saying that Israel's doing genocide and extermination, and you're telling me to respect the process. Criminal, why aren't you in The Hague?
So, criminal, why aren't you in The Hague? The way they treated Sam Husseini bothered me beyond belief, really. If you see someone older, let's say at age, and he's treated like this, like I'm not talking about you being a journalist, right? Just as a person, as a man sitting there. And if you see an old person treated like this, doesn't this, like, I don't know, creates fire in your guts? Like, don't you want to stand up and have a spine to protect an older man? Just like the same thing when firefighters or any man sees a child or a vulnerable woman being under attack or something is happening with them, you see that they're going into danger to protect, right? This is a human instinct that I feel, I don't know, I have it. If I see something like this, it boils my blood. Because I feel like a person like Sam is not young enough or strong enough to protect himself under such circumstances. But here we go. This is something that has bothered me a lot. And I posted this photo before the live streaming. I said, what's striking about the footage of Sam Husseini at Antony Blinken's press conference is the absolute lack of shame or courage among the men in the room. Not one of them had the spine to stand up for a respected senior journalist as he was dragged out like an object by the police. They lacked honor, they lacked dignity, they lacked even the bare minimum of human decency to do what was right. I'm not even mentioning the journalists, because I don't believe most of them are journalists. And if they were, they should have done this themselves. Not only Max and Sam, but every single one of these journalists should have done the same thing like Max and Sam in this last press conference. And they should have walked out of this conference room for this treatment of the journalists. That's why I called Sam, Husseini, and Max real and brave journalists. The other ones, they just like if I was sitting there, seriously, man, if I was sitting there and something like this happens and I'm a journalist myself, I would feel ashamed for not doing anything about it. And just take a position and say, I'm leaving. If every one of these people, if only half of them, if only quarter of them left the room, there is no press conference any longer. This would have been a big scene, right? But because they didn't do it, we have CNN basically reporting it like this. Blinken's final press conference interrupted by protesters. It's in the black, right? Blinken's final press conference interrupted by protesters. Can you believe that? They're not journalists and they're not provocateurs. They are, they are journalists and they are not provocateurs. And they're not just some protesters, and the CNN portrays it this way because not a single one of these prostitutes who are just holding their cameras and taking videos, as you see in this footage, have done nothing. Like, how does this man feel sitting just in front of Sam and watching this man being dragged like a bag of potato outside the conference room? Like, doesn't he have any manhood inside him? Like, no dignity, no honor, nothing, right? So our friend Asal Rad, she says, she corrected the title. She said, journalists dragged out of Blinken's final conference after raising objections to Gaza policy. But the audacity of the CNN comes from the cowardice of the journalists in the room. If every one of them did the right thing and walked out, then the CNN wouldn't have had the audacity to report it that way, right? I want to show you this video. It's from the same scene, but from different angle. I think it's worth watching it. Because as you see, this smirk guy, he was the one who instructed, basically, something that we didn't see in the previous videos. He's the one who instructed the police to remove Sam from the conference room. Take a look. Matt Miller, yes.
I'm not a potted plant. Everyone will have an opportunity to ask questions in just a minute. Thank you. Miller has explicitly told me he will not answer my question. Thank you. So, I have no greater pleasure in this job than crossing off a list I carry in my pocket, the names of those who have been arbitrarily detained and unfairly held hostage, unjustly held hostage, and bringing them home, returning them to their families, returning them to their loved ones. Finally, get your hands off me. 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 Answer a damn question. Do you know about the Hannibal Directive? Do you know about Israel's nuclear weapons? Everybody from the ICJ. I was sitting here quietly, and now I'm being manhandled by 2 or 3 people. You pontificate about a free press. You pontificate about a free press. You are hurting me. You are hurting me. You are hurting me. I'm asking questions after being told by Matt Miller that he will not answer my questions until I'm asking questions. Wasn't the point of the May 31st statement to block the ICJ orders? You blocked the ICJ orders.
300 reporters in Gaza were on the receiving end of your bombs. Why did you allow my friends to be massacred? Why did you allow my friends' homes in Gaza to be destroyed when we had a deal in May? You helped destroy our religion, Judaism, by associating it with fascism.
We'll have the time
You
to
waved
take
the white flag before
We'll have the time to take
Netanyahu.
questions at the end.
You waved the white flag before Israeli
We'll
fascism.
have the time to take questions
Your
at the end.
father-in-law was an Israel lobbyist. Your grandfather was an Israel lobbyist. Are you compromised by Israel? Why did you allow the Holocaust of our time to happen? How does it feel to have your legacy be genocide? How does it feel to have your legacy be genocide? You too, Matt. You smirk through the whole thing every day. You smirk through a genocide.
I think this is the least thing as a journalist you could do under such circumstances, because look, your human instinct and human dignity should come before your job and your career. Every other journalist in that room preferred to keep their job, basically, right? Because they're not free and they're not dependent. They're not independent, sorry. When you link your financial freedom or financial income to a corporation, then you are the slave of that corporation, one way or another. And that is why videos and scenes and confrontations like this only come from people who are truly independent, because they don't care. They have their financial freedom. Something that is lacking in this journalistic sphere. By the way, Sam Husseini, I just checked his background. So Sam Husseini is an independent journalist. He was born in 1967, and he had a Palestinian Christian father and a Jordanian Christian mother. His parents immigrated to the United States when he was 5 years old, and he grew up in New York City. He is the communications director of the Institute for Public Accuracy, and a nonprofit group that promotes progressive experts as alternative sources for mainstream media reporters. So he has written articles for The Nation, Washington Post, USA Today, and his work often focuses on politics, WMDs, and pandemics. I watched his pushback against many of the pandemic restrictions. I was positively surprised, by the way. Our friend Nazia asked, "High care journalism has become a job and not a duty. They lack courage and don't care for the truth." That's true. But at our time and age, we have an option, and not everyone can succeed as an independent journalist. That's true. But if you're competent enough, I assure you, 100%, if you're competent enough, you are providing quality work, written or visual, and you are consistent, I think it is highly likely for you to succeed. In the corporations, probably it's easier to succeed, because then you need more like public relations and, get your way up to the hierarchy. But if you want to become independent and you are basically free to say what you want, like this channel basically, then I think there are better ways to become a journalist. I think if you work from your home office and write 2 articles per week, let's say, as an independent journalist, and make a few podcasts per year, per month, you will be known, especially if you're presenting solid analysis and you're on the right side. And I think that nowadays, despite all the suppression and algorithm and this and that, X and YouTube, you can present yourself and create a brand, Like what I find funny is when I walk, for example, and I'm encountered by people, they're like, "Aren't you Syriana Analysis?" It's like people usually don't remember my name, Kevork Almassian, because it's difficult for them maybe to pronounce or say or remember the name. But usually they remember Syriana Analysis. It's even funnier when you hear Syrians from Syria saying, "Aren't you the Syriana Analysis?" Yeah, you can create your own brand. You don't need to work for New York Times, Washington Post, CNN in order to become a journalist. But if you choose to become a journalist in one of these outlets, you have to know that you're following their editorial basically dictates, and you are their soldier. And CNN, Fox, MSNBC, every major media outlet in the US, they have investors. And the investors have invested interests in presenting certain facts or creating certain narratives. So if you want to do that, it's up to you. But you're better than that, you know? Believe me, many people think they're not good enough. This is something that I notice in many friends and colleagues, that they like this comfort zone, you know? I have a job, khalas, you know? Why? Like, they're not going to kick me out. I know how to edit reports, or I know how to edit some videos, or I can, you know, create some reels per week. At the end of the month, I know that my bank account has this amount of money, and then I just shut up, you know, because the goal here is just survival. But if you want to make a difference, you cannot make a difference if you work for CNN. You cannot make a difference if you work for Washington Post or New York Times. You can create a big name and you can receive prizes if you're a good boy for the investors, but you're not making a difference that can have a positive impact on the people's lives. That's what I'm trying to say. And our job as journalists should be serving the interests of the people. That's why people like Sam Husseini and Max Blumenthal are real and brave journalists, unlike the rest who were just sitting there and doing nothing. By the way, on CNN, they also reported on video, basically. This is what they basically reported after the incident. They said, this is how CNN framed it. Cringe-worthy heckling by activists, and while footage of Sam Husseini being dragged out by police plays, one CNN personality heralds the open policy in the press briefings room. So they are basically calling them cringe-worthy hecklers, activists, protesters, everything but a journalist, right? I mean, if you, from the context of what I said about CNN, that's not surprising, right? That's not surprising. And on CNN later, of course, Christiane Amanpour, she's a good girl for the establishment. She has met with Secretary Blinken, and she says, does Secretary Blinken acknowledge that Israel has committed war crimes? I mean, he said we had concerns, more than concerns, about the way Israel has conducted itself, but adds that he trusts Israel's own internal investigation. In addition, he claims the State Department's dissent channel has affected our thinking in many cases, including our actions. So he will never, even while he is leaving, so there are not much of consequences to him. He refuses even to say that Israel committed one war crime in the Gaza Strip. Right? Let me check. These videos of Max and Sam reminded me of this past incident. If you remember, I think this was 2 years ago, by an American veteran, basically, who interrupted George W. Bush in 2021. I think everyone should do something like this. If you see any of these war criminals, you should be like this.
Apologize for the million Iraqis that are dead because you lied. You lied about weapons of mass destruction. You lied about connections to 9/11. You lied about Iraq being a threat. You sent me to Iraq. You sent me to Iraq in 2003. My friends are dead. Joshua Castile. You killed people. You lied. You lied about WMD. A million Iraqis are dead because you lied. My friends are dead because you lied. You need to apologize.
I just want to show you this woman. Look how she pushed him. Look. Seriously. This. Look at this red dress woman.
My friends are dead because you lied. You need to apologize. Apologize.
Disgusting, seriously. 1 million people died because of a lie. None of them care. None. Because the people in the Middle East, West Asia, call it whatever you want, they're nothing but insects for them, flies. They can step on you, they can kill you, they can smash you, they can displace you, they can uproot you, they can commit genocide, they can do everything. And then if you confront them, the rest of the people will not even be in solidarity with you. They will just try to push you away like this. You know, then you have, if you, of course you remember Muntasar al-Zaidi, when he threw his shoes on George W. Bush like this. This is how it should end, basically, right? This is how it should end. By the way, while you're watching this stream, if you saw the thumbnail of the today's stream, this was today I was checking on X, and it came across my attention, the thumbnail photo. Basically, this was a photo illustration, basically published on X, and I really liked it. So I just wanted to see who is making this illustration. And it turned out it is made by Lucio Zago. And Lucio Zago is an illustrator. Basically, he's creating such artwork and design work, etc., etc. And I contacted him and I said, do you allow me to use this photo as a thumbnail photo? He turned out like, yeah, of course. I know your work. I really love what you do, and I really like your work, and what you say, I totally agree with you. And I said, I would like to give a credit to you. So I would like to give a credit to him for using his thumbnail photo, basically. So this is his website. I already put the link in the description below. If you want, you can check. This is his work. This is his website. I put his X account and also his website in the description below. You can also buy some of the artwork. For example, this one, I found it really cool. These are independent journalists. Basically, he drew their faces. There is a bigger one. Let me see if I can make this again. This one probably. Yes, it works. It should work. So this is the bigger one. Yeah. So if you do zoom in a little bit, I don't know if we can zoom in. Okay. This is how it looks like. So this is an illustration of the independent journalists who have been consistently pushing against the mainstream narratives. Maybe some of them you don't agree, some of them agree. That's not the case. But I found many, many, many good faces and names in this list. Maybe considering if somebody considers to follow some of them or purchase this poster, basically. I didn't find myself in this poster. I was like zooming in, zooming out, zooming in, zooming out. Maybe somewhere in the corner, maybe my face. Inshallah, next year. Maybe I become better and deserve to be among these journalists. But if you think that I deserve, I would really appreciate it if you hit the like button, subscribe to my YouTube channels before leaving this stream. And if you like to support my independent work, you can become a patron. The link is scrolling on the screen, patreon.com/Syriana Analysis. And there are also other ways. People don't want to use Patreon. You have Buy Me a Coffee. You can become a premium member. There is PayPal. There are different means in the description below. If you like to support this channel, I would really appreciate it. And we will see each other on Monday. It is going to be the 20th of January, 2025. So I wish you a great weekend. I wish you peace upon you and upon your families. And we will see each other soon. Salam.